I second that thought, so that's great. I now recognize the ranking member, the gentleman from California, Mr. Swalwell, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you. And to follow what Ms. Ronaldo was saying about JCDC, Ms. Keene, can you discuss how JCDC facilitates information sharing? And to Ms. Ronaldo's point, how important is it for CISA 2015 to be effective that we have a mechanism like JCDC that facilitates cross-sector information sharing?
I think, how JCDC, disseminates today and the critical importance of it, and to your point that it's a relatively new program, one of the things about it is it allows for rapid distribution when threat happens between industry and government, so that we have, in essence, a real-time channel of things that are going on. From an industry perspective, it's really important that we even broaden the scope of it to work closer with the ISACs and to think about how we can distribute not just to, the top level of industry, but actually pull it down. From a JCDC perspective, I think it's one of the best things we've seen come out of CISA so far, and it's still evolving. But that ability to have information sharing without repercussion, I think, is one of the areas that we really need to focus on. And so that's why, looking at the in essence reauthorization of this act is so important, because we're just at the beginning of where JCDC could go. And as we start to think about, we've mentioned China, but if we think about the Chinese threats that have come in from Volt Typhoon, Salt Typhoon, Black's Typhoon, Nylon Typhoon, there's a lot of typhoons right now. We're going to see, in essence, cross-pollination of those critical vulnerabilities exploits, and JCDC is going to be incredibly important to ensure we disseminate rapidly through that.
And to Ms. Ronaldo's point about security clearances, it's a frustration I share as well. My district is high-tech and biotech, 2 nuclear labs, and often I hear what Ms. Ronaldo was saying, which is yeah, the CEO is cleared, but he's not the engineer, and he doesn't understand. One, his time is limited, or her time is limited, and 2, he or she doesn't have the skill set to receive and understand the threat. But the problem on the government side is they're not really willing to clear that many individuals, and I just welcome your feedback on if you're seeing that, because if you remember 2 years ago, there was like a 19-year-old who was caught leaking Ukraine war plans, and it was a military service member, and you're wait, we have a 19-year-old, basically the war plans for Ukraine, but we have 20-year professionals who we could give one-day passes or more information to better protect critical infrastructure, and we're cautious about that. So it just seems like we've got the priorities crosswise, but I'd welcome feedback from you, Ms. Keene, on that.
It's interesting, I've been in cybersecurity for over 25 years, and some of the first attacks or hacks I dealt with were nation-state level attacks going around the financial services network. If you can imagine, I was 23 years old walking roofs with Scotland Yard and looking at data center break-ins, and then some of the first financial services attacks. I have never held security clearance in the United States. Been a risk executive of 2 Fortune 25 companies. The reality is that we do need to re-examine how we look at clearance, but we also have to think about the fact that cybersecurity is, to some degree, and we talked about it, a team sport. I've known 15-year-olds who've had inventions become state secrets and housed in the NSA, and I've known 90-year-olds who still sit on boards and talk about cybersecurity. We need to make it, the reality of today's risk is that cyber risk is now business risk. And it's a question of how we look at protecting all the different areas companies look at risk from financial, operational, resilience perspective, everything. And so from a clearance perspective, it's getting the right individuals in an organization cleared to ensure they understand, but also to make it more of a common language so we understand the impact risk has on our organizations.
And just as Mr. Ogle said, I welcome ideas, feedback. I'm a little hesitant to want to amend this at all at this point, at this late hour, risking that opening this up would not see it reauthorized. But I do agree that with Mr. Ogles that we need your feedback, and just because we reauthorize it, if we do it in a clean way, that doesn't mean we can't down the road, even right after reauthorization, have hearings and markups to make it even better. But avoiding a lapse is my priority, and it sounds like, Ms. Keene, you agree.
That would actually be my recommendation. I think that a reauthorization cleanly and then look at how we optimize and look at things down the road for a couple of reasons. We're at the beginning of AI. We're still trying to figure out some things regarding, different types of attacks. Like I said, we have malicious mistake and malfunction, and I think there's a way we can strengthen public-private on the back of it, but I would recommend a clean authorization.
Great, thank you.